My friends, let's talk late night Switch to news and niftiness. Some good stuff, and then also I want to bring up this confusion about if the Switch 2 edition games are actually on the cartridge or not, because I've seen a variety of spice out there and it seems to be rubbing people all different ways. So, what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Let's dive straight in. First off, YouTuber Modern Vintage Gamer, more commonly known as MVG, they do a lot with Nate the Hate, a podcast actually, said that even though they can't go into much detail for contractual reasons, they're reasonably sure that all games will eventually be made compatible for Switch 2. Now, MVG is a developer for one of the Switch games listed by Nintendo as not compatible with Switch 2. And maybe you have checked out this list, that there are games that they say are not compatible. There's games that they say like, this game, has issues on boot. This game has more substantial issues. And Nintendo has said themselves that, quote, we're checking them all one by one, more than 10,000 games in total. But this is very good, and it kind of factors into what I felt, which was that some of these Switch 1 games are probably running on very old versions of the development kit, very old versions of the SDK, and were built kind of in an antiquated way. I would imagine that newer Switch 1 games, like games that released in 2024, for example, those are much easier to just swish over to Switch 2. But if they can update these, which they should be able to do relatively easily, then it's fair to say that almost all the games will be compatible on Switch 2. Obviously, except Toy-Con 04 VR Labo. But other than that, you should be able to get these games. So the ones that say they have problems, the ones that say they have issues, this is not a case of Nintendo lazily just moving the games over. They're checking them and then probably working with the developers or doing what they can themselves to update the games and to get them over to the Switch 2. So we don't know exactly what MVG means here. He says contractual reasons, so he probably can't go into details because he has some sort of NDA, a non-disclosure agreement with Nintendo being a developer for one of these games, but I think that's very good news. I also think the box art looks sick. Some people were hating on the box art, and I thought it looked a little weird at first because the Switch 2 is just straight up in the center, but seeing it from the side gives a whole different perspective, baby. Quite literally. It's very nice to see that the art wraps around the game. I know some people love the red spine of the Switch 1 games, and it makes it very easy to organize on your shelf, but it removes the personality from each individual title. This now gives you that personality back while still maintaining some of the redness, the red Nintendo logo, the red Switch 2 logo on the spine, and then, of course, whatever game it is, Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza. I think these boxes look pretty fancy, but people have been digging into the boxes in particular for a specific reason that I wanted to bring up, which is this idea that Switch 2 edition games are not on the cartridge. Now, okay, this is a little complicated and it's a little bit weird, so let's just start from the beginning. A Switch 2 edition game means that you're buying the game and that upgrade, right? So for Kirby and the Forgotten Land, you're getting that Switch 2 extra pack, the extra story on there, Starcross World. For Metroid Prime 4, you're just getting, the better graphics and the ability to use the mouse controls. For Breath of the Wild, you're getting access to that phone app and you're getting HDR and better frame rate. For Tears of the Kingdom, same type of thing. So these editions are being sold in a cartridge in a physical box. What came up, though, was that a UK support agent from Nintendo was asked about if these were codes or carts. And they say, we can confirm that the upgrades will be download codes. This is from Pedro on the UK customer support team. And no, it's Pedro S, not Pedro Pascal, don't worry. So this has thrown people into a tizzy because it would mean that you're buying basically the Switch 1 game on a cartridge, and then they're requiring you to download the Switch 2 upgrade. Therefore, the big problem here is not the download and connect to the internet. The big problem is that this would mean Nintendo, if you ever sold the game, if you ever gave it to a friend or a family member, would be double dipping on you, right? Let's say I get the Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Starcross World Switch 2 edition. I pop in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, I download Starcross World. If I sell that or give it to you, you only got Kirby and the Forgotten Land. You don't have Starcross World. This person is saying it's a download code, which is different than even the game key card where it's tied to the cartridge itself. Because in theory, with the game key cards, you would be able to re-download the full thing. Now, what's interesting here, before you throw up your arms and say, Nintendo, what the heck are you doing? On the box for these games, for Metroid, for BOTW, TOTK, and Kirby, it says, include the Nintendo Switch game and the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition upgrade pack. Upgrade pack also available separately. Now, what's very interesting about that there is when we look at the game key card stuff, the game key card specifically says game key card and alerts you to that. Also, on Switch 1, if there ever was a game that required an internet download, they threw that right on the front of the box. My guess here is that this is an incorrect response from a customer service agent who's just trying to do their best and maybe doesn't have the clearest information. We know that Nintendo rolled out this information in a very convoluted way. It came out in the Direct, it came out after, and then there's a lot of articles just on Nintendo.com and amongst their support pages. I could easily see someone getting confused between game key cards, between original Switch 1 games, between DLC download, and between even some of Nintendo's Switch 1 games that had like a Game of the Year edition. If you recall, there were some Switch 1 games that had like a plus DLC edition where the DLC was given as a download code. And then eventually, there were some Switch 1 games that had it all on the cart. Like you would get the game plus the DLC on the cart, and those became coveted. I believe that some were released only in other territories, some were released worldwide. It wasn't very common practice. I could easily see Pedro, good guy Pedro here, just trying to answer the best of his ability and not knowing. Because to me, Nintendo is not trying to hide. They're very, very upfront when it's a game key card. They've got a special little skeleton key logo for you. They're very upfront with Switch 1 when you have to download and there's an internet connection required. And these, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 Edition, Breath of the Wild Switch 2 Edition, and Kirby and the Starcross World do not say anything about internet connection or download required. They say includes the Nintendo Switch game and the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition upgrade pack. Upgrade pack also available separately. So people are trying to read into this and figure out, what does that mean? The and there. Like, is that saying that it's both on the same cartridge? Is that saying it's two separate means of acquiring it? But I'm going to say that Nintendo does make more sense to include it both in the cart. A, to avoid the calamity of people being like, WTF, you're double charging, you're trying to double dip, and what the heck is this, just a Switch 1 game repackaged? And two, it would just increase the confusion with their game key cards and other titles as well. I do believe that maybe the confusion here is that you can buy the upgrades separately, right? Like I can go on the eShop and I can buy, or in theory in stores, I could buy a code for Metroid Prime 4 upgrade. I could buy a code for Starcross World upgrade. I could buy a code for Breath of the Wild upgrade. And maybe that is what Pedro was referring to. I will be shocked if we find out that Nintendo is not putting the download required on the box. And you might say, well, it's on the back, Zach. We haven't seen the back. I don't think Nintendo would do that. That would be very, very mischievous, and that would be very misleading. It would be wrong, frankly, to front box say it includes both, and then back box say, oh, wait, you need to download it. Now, there is a lot of storage on the Switch 2, so maybe a smaller download isn't something that they feel they need to alert people about, but the internet connection definitely is, and we know Nintendo is continuing the practice of alerting their consumers because we see the game key card specify that it's a game key card. Now, I will say the one sort of slightly minutely dicey thing. On the game key card, it does not say download or internet connection required. It just says game key card, and you need to know what the game key card is, and then most likely on the back of the box, it goes into detail on what the game key card is. Is there a chance that Nintendo, on the front of the box, says includes the Nintendo Switch game and the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition upgrade pack, and then on the back says, oh, that upgrade pack is a code? Very strange. I feel like they would put some sort of game key card or upgrade download. It could say like upgrade download code instead of upgrade pack. But can a pack be on a cartridge, or is a pack just to download? Maybe there's like a hybrid world here where the game is on there, the OG game, but then the upgrade pack is game keycard style, so it's like mixing the two together. But if it was game keycard style, that would avoid the issue of you being able to, or not being able to pass this along to someone and them also have access to the upgrade. I think the stinky thing overall is for those who like physical and for those who do not want to download their games digitally, If this was not all in the cartridge, then you're basically just buying the Switch 1 game, and then you're downloading the upgrade pack, in which case, I think it would be way better to just buy the Switch 1 game off of like eBay or Mercari or the eShop, and then get the upgrade that way off the eShop as well. Physical is just something that we have to face is going to be a smaller supported segment of the market. But in this case, I really do think that Nintendo is including that on the game card. I will be surprised if it's not there. I really hope it is. I don't have any plans to buy Switch 2 editions of games because I already own the games that they are selling and I don't need to rebuy them. This is not something that would affect me, and frankly, I think it's something that would not affect most people. Most people probably have Breath of the Wild. Most people probably have Tears of the Kingdom. If you don't, though, I understand that we need to make sure of this, and it's something I'll follow up on when I get more details. But my gut tells me that Nintendo would specify, because they're making a whole deal of this game key card thing, and if they were trying to be sneaky, they wouldn't make that deal at all, nor would they have been so upfront with the Switch 1 games, having that download required big warning on the front that makes the box art so ugly. To me, hopefully this goes smoothly. I think the upgrade editions are already a bit interesting, let me say, because they're kind of upcharging the upgrades because they're adding more content, but you're like forced to get the more content. So like Zelda is a good one, I think, because it's just $10. Kirby is $20 because they're giving you like DLC, and Mario Party Jamboree is $20 because they're giving you DLC. I kind of wish there was a way to just, the upgrade was $10 and then there's also this DLC that's Switch 2 specific, but maybe they thought that would limit sales so tremendously it wasn't worth doing the DLC. In which case I say, why did they bother doing the DLC at all? But then they probably say, well, no one was going to buy a graphics upgrade for Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and this is a way to sort of fill the calendar and bring some of these cool games back to Switch 2, re-advertise them, and also develop new content for the players that love that. It's kind of a heads or tails thing, and by that I mean like you either love it or you don't love it. You love it because Nintendo is bringing you more content, and as someone that already owns the game, it's like, hey, it's a $20 DLC pack. I think the difference is, like, I don't know about Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Starcross World seems like it might be a substantial addition. The Mario Party Jamboree stuff, I don't know that feels like $20 to me. I mean, it is a new mode. Like, the roller coaster mode is new. There's a bunch of new minigames. Maybe it is worth it. I would rather have new boards. That's the DLC I've always wanted for any Mario Party, and they've never brought it to the table. So maybe that's just a personal preference. But in my head, $10 is what an upgrade should be. Nintendo has just merged the two. And so $20, I get. Like, I guess then for Mario Party Jamboree, you're paying $10 for the DLC and $10 for the graphics, but nobody really cares about the graphics of Mario Party Jam. Like, see what I'm saying? This is why it's probably dicey for Nintendo. And at the end of the day, they do want to make money, and they do want to have games that they can pepper in throughout the calendar. Like, you know, Kirby is coming out in August, Mario Party is coming out in July. But I do hope it's all on the cartridge, so for people that do want that, they have that option. Yes, Nintendo and their many different versions of many different types of games in many different ways to make this convoluted. That they could do better. I think they could have simplified this. You know, outside of the pricing of things, I think Nintendo could have simplified how they are doing this. It's kind of all over the place. Zelda is included with the expansion pack, but it's also $10 if you want to get it separate, and you don't have the expansion pack online service. And Kirby is $20, but they haven't really made that clear. But they said Kirby is $80 if you look at Walmart.com. But is it a download code? But we've got these game key cards. Like, I don't know. Maybe it would have been easier to just say, like, all the games have to be on the cart. They all have to fit on the cart. Because what's the one? There's one that's download that's 50 gigs. Can't you get a 64 gig cart? Maybe they should have just forced all third parties and everyone to put this on the cart. I think Nintendo's going to put it on the cart. We'll wait and see. Let me know if that's a deal breaker for you. Are you like a gosh, it's got to be on the cart person? I mean, the game is on the cart. It's just the upgrade pack. See, if the upgrade pack for Zelda isn't on the cart, it's like, okay, you're just downloading the unlock to play in HDR with higher frame rate. But Kirby and Mario Party are weird because then it's like you're downloading the content too. I don't know. That's why I think it's in the cart. In the meantime, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Let me know your take on today's topics in the comments down below. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. SwitchForce out.